I never know when to start talking on these live streams because there's always a bit of a delay between me seeing myself live on this monitor and it going live on YouTube. I can see we've got people joining. Got 6 people here already, which is always amazing. I'm amazed anyone shows up to these, to be honest, but you guys are great. So thank you for coming on board. I hope you're all well. It's what day is it? It's Wednesday. And the first thing I'm going to do, actually, before anything, is have a rant. Oh, hang on, I'm echoing. This is already a disaster. There we go. Let's get rid of that. The first thing I'm going to do before I say anything is have a rant about Amazon. And the reason for that, excuse me, is because they have messed me around twice now, and I cannot believe what's happened. Genuinely cannot believe it. So 2 weeks ago, I ordered an iPad Pro. And it turned up, well, a box turned up the next day, opened the box, and there wasn't an iPad Pro in it. There was a work light, the kind of one of those floor standing work lights that you use when you're painting your spare bedroom, if you do that. Not an iPad Pro. So that was the first instance. I've never had that happen before. This was completely new ground for me. But clearly, there'd been a picking error of sorts at Amazon's end, and I'd got the wrong item. So complained about that, and that is still kind of ongoing, believe it or not. Forgetting that, 2 weeks later, yesterday, 2 days ago, I ordered a new Sony camera, and it turned up, or again, a box turned up, apparently containing the Sony camera yesterday. Opened it, no Sony camera. It was a cheap 20, 30 quid Yeti blue mic, basically. Basically, it wasn't a Sony camera. It was one of those moments, you know, when something happens and you look at it and you think, this hasn't just happened. There's no. I was in the kitchen and I'd opened it, and Jen my girlfriend was in the living room, and she just heard me say, "It's happened again," and all I heard her say was, "You are joking." So basically, Amazon has now twice sent me something completely different from the high value item that I was expecting. And if you look into this, there's a bit of a trend here. I'm not the only person who's experienced this. There's been quite a few people who have ordered high value items from Amazon and not received them. Now, I'm not going to cast aspersions or suggest that something dodgy is happening here, obviously, but it's very annoying because I needed that camera. I was going to use that camera for this live stream. I'm not using that now. I'm using this little Insta360, which actually looks okay. It doesn't look too bad. But yeah, I just can't believe it. And the problem with this is if you rely on Amazon for your business like I do, I use Prime because it gets things to me very quickly. And quite often I need that thing tomorrow. So you pay for Prime for that service. And when it fails to deliver, it can completely screw up your day. And the worst part of it is that you then have to go into the whole rigmarole of speaking to them, chatting to them, calling them, taking things back to the post office, showing, taking photos of the thing that they got wrong, that they sent to you to prove that it's the wrong thing you've been sent. All the worry that's then associated with, will they refund me for the original thing that they should have sent, or the 20 quid thing they actually sent me? And I've done nothing wrong. I've just ordered something, paid for it. They've got my money as well, paid for it, and they've completely failed. They had one job. You get an order for something, you go and pick it off a shelf, you put it into a box, done. That's all they had to do, and they couldn't do that twice. I promise these live streams won't be me ranting all the time unless you want me to, because there's always something to rant about in this business. I love what I do, but there's always something which is absolutely cheesing me off. So anyway, that's that rant out of the way. If you've had a similar thing with Amazon, let me know in the comments. I'm just seeing if anyone in here has suggested that they've had the same thing. Nothing yet, but anyway, enough about Amazon. It's just one of those things, but it has kind of, annoyed me and slightly screwed up my diary over the last couple of weeks. Anyway, welcome to the first live stream. I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago to celebrate the whole 100,000 subscriber thing on the Mark Ellis Reviews channel. Thank you if you joined that. That was a separate thing, really. These are my weekly live streams. This is the first one. And the idea with these, there's two things, really. One of them is to give me the opportunity to talk freely without editing, without anything going on apart from me standing here with this mic and the camera, completely freely about a topic of my choosing each week. So I'm going to choose something content creator, solopreneur, business related, but surrounding this the creator industry that I'm in, and just talk about it, just waffle on about it, ramble about it, and hopefully that will be interesting. But also, and more importantly, it gives you the opportunity to ask me questions, and you can ask me literally. I'll regret this, but you can ask me anything. And we'll come to the questions in a bit. But basically, while I'm rabbiting on, just pop any questions you've got in the chat, and I'll kind of periodically check it and see what's going on. Another thing, just very quickly, just a reminder to, if you fancy getting some more, if you haven't had enough of me already, if you want to get some more weekly tips from me, I have a completely free Substack newsletter that has gone really off the charts in terms of subscriber signups. It's been amazing. So again, if you've already joined that, thank you. If you haven't joined that, there's a link in the description. Just pop that in, and then pop your email address in there, and then every Friday you'll get a email from me with some other behind the scenes stuff and advice on how to do this sort of thing. Although I'm not an expert, but I do enjoy sharing what I've learned. Some people are talking about Amazon here. So Big Johnson says, ordered a 2 terabyte NVMe drive from Amazon UK, received 8 of the same item. Well, that's awesome. I wish that had happened to me. Amazon have sent me a complete duplicate order before. They've sent me the 2 of the exact same order twice and charged me for it twice as well. And sending that back was a pain in the backside as well. Jan, camera looks very bright and nice. Good. I'm glad it looks okay. I'm obviously bothered about that sort of thing. So Andy's had an occasion with Amazon where you ordered a mobile phone gimbal and it said it was delivered when it wasn't, and you've got CCTV cameras to check. It never arrived. I've had that before as well. It's just, I won't keep ranting about Amazon, but it's such a huge entity now that this sort of stuff is unfortunately inevitable, and fixing it is incredibly difficult. And as the consumer, we're kind of backed into a corner, and you can't do anything. It's so frustrating. But there you go. Anyway, enough about Amazon. What I thought I'd talk about today, which has always kind of fascinated me, is how I built what I'd call my YouTube skill set. And by that, I mean all the things that I do to make this stuff possible, and what I've done over the last 3 years to grow my audience and get to the point where I could actually do this full time. Because whenever you create a YouTube channel, you basically, if you're doing it on your own, which most people are, certainly from the start, you're basically creating a production studio. Everything from writing to filming to editing, publishing, PR, marketing, sales, all of it, everything that you would normally find in a big production studio is kind of squashed down into this little thing that you run yourself. And to do that, you don't have to be an expert in all those things, but you have to have some experience and just a bit of knowledge about each of those areas. You don't, like I say, you don't have to be an expert at all, but it helps if you roughly know what you're doing. I'm not suggesting that I know what I'm doing with all those things, but what has always fascinated me is how I've unwittingly built this bunch of skills basically over the course of my working life that have all led to this moment and to me building this business and becoming a full-time content creator. And I've noted down some of the things that have happened in my life that have kind of contributed towards this. And the first one is music, which might sound a bit strange, but music has always been a massive part of my life. I grew up in a household that had my dad in it, who was a musician, and he's been a musician since he was a kid, basically. Still plays, has always played live. He was a full-time musician, a professional for, how long was it? 3 decades or something, a very long time. And because of that, music has always played a massive role in my life. And it was one of those things where it was never forced on me at all. But I think as soon as I kind of realized, what my dad did, and first discovered music as a little kid, immediately it was just like, wow, this is amazing. I love this. And because dad did what he did, I saw the behind the scenes part of it. So I saw the playing, I saw the kind of tech behind the scenes, the production side of it, the live element of it. And it just fascinated me from a very early age, to the point where I started working with my dad's band when I was probably about 12, quite young. I was pretty young, 12, 13, and, yeah, went out with the band. I did the sound and the lighting basically, so I was a kind of junior sound and lighting guy, and I did that for years and years, and while I was doing that, I was also building my own little bedroom studio. Again, I did that from about the age of 14, 15, or something, and, I've always kept that side of it up. I've always, although I don't have as much time to do it now, I've always had this love of making music, and I love live performance. I've performed live myself. I do play piano. Again, not as much these days, but I've done all that as well. I've played with my dad, which is still one of my proudest moments. And so music has been a massive part of what I've done, and because of that, it's given me this. What's the best way of putting it? It's given me this knowledge and experience of, like I say, live performance, which YouTube is. You are performing. What I'm doing now is a performance. I don't talk like this to my family. I have to be animated and be semi-interesting for you guys to stay on this live stream. So it's a performance, and that is something that comes from my music background. And the other thing is all the sound, everything you hear on my YouTube channel, the podcast, the little music idents and things that I use are all created by me. They're all mixed by me. They're all mastered by me. Again, because I spent years and years being a real geek about that stuff and loving it. And so I kind of walked into YouTube having a good knowledge of audio and being able to make music myself, which is very useful when you need music to, like I say, to have a kind of ident for your channel, an audio ident, or if you want to use incidental music but not pay for it, if you can make your own music, amazing. So that has helped massively. The other thing that has really kind of helped over the last 3 years is the experience that I had in sales and marketing. So before this, I spent 16 years, I think, at a business that I worked for from the age of 20, I think, to about the age of 35, 36 or something. And that was a kind of working my way up from the ground floor, doing support calls. It was a very small, or fairly small software company that developed software for hotels. And I started off on the support desk and eventually made my way into the boardroom as the sales and marketing director, having never done anything sales or marketing wise in my entire life. And I think, as I've said previously, I've got no qualifications for any of this stuff. I haven't got a degree. I've just always tried things and made a mess of it and learned from it. So I spent this very long time at this company where I did lots of different things. I did on-site training. Like I said, I then went into the kind of sales side of things where I was doing presentations to big groups of people and all that kind of stuff. And then I went into marketing where I was suddenly looking after the website, the lead funnel process, and starting to write as well for that business. Both of those things, sales and marketing and the presentation stuff, once again, has played a massive role in running this business, because I understand fairly well and have a fairly decent knowledge of business itself, but also sales and marketing. I understand how those things work, and that is a huge part of running a YouTube business. Obviously, when I left that business, I did spend about 5 years running my own external marketing kind of consultancy thing, and those skills continue to develop during that period. But yeah, that's probably the longest. Well, it is definitely the longest period of time I've spent working anywhere or doing anything, and it was transformative, really. The other thing is writing. I mentioned that a moment ago. A little bit like the music, writing has always been a big passion of mine. Again, ever since I was about 12, 13 years old, I've written stuff, whether it be back then, as it was, trying to write my own novels and things, and being inspired by people like Terry Pratchett, etc. And then, obviously, more recently, writing blog posts, journaling and all that sort of stuff. I've talked about this before, but in between starting this business and leaving that 16-year career, I spent an awful lot of time, like I say, 4 or 5 years, writing so many blog posts for businesses. Very, very boring blog posts. I've always tried to work out how many I've possibly written. It's in the thousands. It's probably tens of thousands in total across the several years, and that was hard work. It wasn't as amazing as I kind of hoped it would be when I went into that business. When I started that business, I got very fed up with it. It was very much painting by numbers towards the end. But again, it gave me this appreciation for blog structures and knowing when you've written 500 words, knowing when you've written 1,000 words, and knowing how to format blog posts and how they work from an SEO perspective. All of that has gone into Mark Ellis reviews as well. There's videography as well. So a big part of running a YouTube channel obviously is filming yourself and filming products and things, in my case. And I know most of my YouTube friends, and a lot of people on YouTube actually, go into YouTube without any experience with a camera, without any experience editing. And one of my unfair advantages, as I call them, was the fact that I had experience in both of those areas. So I'd spent, during that 5-year period where I was running my external marketing consultancy thing, I started to do, I kept adding services on basically. So I did the writing thing, I did copywriting, blog writing, and then I added in videography because I've always been a very keen photographer. And I thought, well, let's just throw in videography. Let's start filming stuff. I've got a camera. It can work as a video camera as well. Let's go for it. And threw that into that business, did lots of kind of corporate type videos. So kind of, to camera things like this, but also off camera interviews, product reels, all the normal stuff really that corporates and businesses want. Really enjoyed doing that actually. And that was my kind of formative years with Final Cut Pro and becoming a video editor. That's where I learned most of my skills there. Same thing with the filming. I learned a lot about composition and just how to use a camera, how to use a camera in manual mode to get the right exposure, all that sort of stuff, learning about aperture and focus racking and all these things, and getting the gear together as well. That was another unfair advantage that I had. I came into the land of YouTube with a bunch of gear. So I had 2 or 3 cameras, I had lenses, I had lighting, I had tripods, etc. And again, a lot of people don't have that, and I do see that as an unfair advantage. But that's something else that I threw into this business. Voiceover work, that's something else I did briefly, which I'd completely forgotten about. Now, I should kind of confirm at this stage that I always find this a little bit uncomfortable to talk about because I find it slightly embarrassing, but I do seem to have there seems to be quite a lot of people who like the sound of my voice, particularly in America. That seems to be, I think, because I've got that kind of generic, you can't quite place it, English bloke type thing. I'm clearly not from London. I'm not, sorry, my camera started moving. How strange. Let's put that back to where it was. This is why I needed that camera, by the way. But yeah, I've got this kind of very generic UK accent, which people say, oh, you could read the news, you should do audio books and all this sort of stuff. I don't agree. I hate the sound of my own voice. I hate editing your own voice is never fun, and I particularly don't enjoy it whatsoever. So I don't really understand it. But a few years ago, I did have the option to do some voiceover work, and I did it. And I did some voice. It's probably not there anymore, but I did some voiceover work for a software company, like a kind of software demo walkthroughs and stuff they wanted to put onto their website. So I did that, and that is it's one of those things where you think this will be quite straightforward. It's just standing in front of a mic and reading something. Well, like anything, it's damn hard, really, really difficult. And I was surprised by just how tricky it was. And I enjoyed part of it, like I say, but it was clearly something I didn't want to continue doing. But again, that is something I've put into this channel. I've done some voiceover stuff for videos, and just doing voiceover work anyway gets you used to being in front of a mic, gets you used to the way that you should pronounce things, and how the clarity of your voice and all that sort of stuff, which I still struggle with, as you can probably tell sometimes. So that was thrown into there as well. I also did podcast hosting and production. So during that 5-year period of running that marketing consultancy, I added that into my services as well. So I started doing podcast production for people. I did some podcast hosting, which I still do, and I don't talk about this very often. I do talk about it occasionally on my newsletter, but I do some work every month for Armchair Marketing. They're a fantastic marketing company in the automotive space, run by my mate Lee. That's the reason I've been doing some stuff with them. But before I started Mark Ellis Reviews, we built a little studio together in Northampton in his office, and he kind of roped me into presenting their show. I do it once a month at the moment. It's pre-recorded YouTube stuff, and I doubt very much you've ever seen it. It's very specific to the automotive industry. But again, doing the Armchair Show got me used to presenting and interviewing people, which I'm doing a lot of now for this Solo Club channel. So basically, I mean, they're the things that I listed down. And so what we've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 7 or 8 things that I've either done and had as, passions and hobbies, or things that I've built into my business, or things that I've had to do as part of my job, which if you combine them all together, it's given me the skills that I need to start, run, and grow my YouTube business, both Mark Ellis Reviews and also Solo Club. And it's that classic thing. It's another Steve Jobs quote, which I'm always kind of referring to, which is that you can't join up the dots looking forward, but you can join them up looking backwards. And all that stuff that I just mentioned, when I was doing it, particularly when I was running my own little business, they always felt very disparate and totally unlinked and not particularly beneficial when kind of cobbled together. Little did I know that a few years later, I'd need all of those skills, every single one of them that I'd kind of developed over those years and worked on and loved doing, either professionally or in my spare time. I needed all of them for this. And I genuinely think if I hadn't done some of those things, if for instance, if I'd taken out my experience with marketing, I would have struggled to get Mark Ellis Reviews to where it is now, because marketing plays a huge role in the way that particular brand has grown. If I'd taken the writing element out, if I didn't enjoy writing, I may as well not have started YouTube, because as I've always said, everything starts with writing. No matter what type of content you're creating, you have to be fairly proficient at writing to get anywhere. It doesn't mean you need to be a technically brilliant writer, but you do need to have an interest in writing. If I'd taken the videography stuff out, I'd have had to spend ages learning it, and who's got time for that really? And and podcast. If I'd taken the podcast hosting and production side of things out of my past experience, I wouldn't have started 8 or 16. I wouldn't have felt comfortable probably doing these live streams. So it's just amazing. It just fascinates me. And I'm not special with this at all. I guess that everyone on this, who's joined this live stream has got similar experiences where they look back, and it's worth thinking about. If you look back and think, what did I do in the past, unknowingly or unwittingly, that has been all combined together to get me to where I am now and to make me the person I am? It always fascinates me. So yeah, that was my kind of journey into where I am now and how I built this YouTube skill set. And yeah, I just thought I'd share that with you guys. I'd love to take some questions now, rather than carrying on rambling on about this stuff. So hit me with some questions. I've got one here already, which I'm not going to try and pronounce your name, because I can guarantee I'll get it wrong. I don't want to do that. But it says, do you watch many movies / series? I didn't like in Succession how they keep zooming in on the camera. Fascinating you say that, actually, because my girlfriend's the same. They've used this technique in all is it all 4 seasons? Is it 3 or 4? Anyway, ever since Succession started, they've used this kind of almost like documentary handheld style camera work, where it's a little bit jerky, and they keep doing this thing where they zoom in and zoom out and they pan sharp left and right like that, which is to make, I think the reason they do it is to make it feel like you're what's the word? You're observing what's going on. You're a bit of a fly on the wall. You perhaps shouldn't be watching what you're watching, and it does add this level of uncomfortableness to it. The best thing you can liken it to is The Office, the UK Office series with Ricky Gervais. Most of that, from memory, was handheld camera, and it felt very documentary-like, and it added to how uncomfortable it felt, which is what a lot of what Succession is about. I love Succession, by the way. But going back to your thing, my girlfriend Jen, she did say when the current season started, there was a certain scene where they zoomed in really sharply into something, and she kind of winced and said, "That's not very good camera work, is it?" I said, "Jen, they've been doing this since since episode 1, season 1. This is the kind of it's the style that they're going for." So, yeah, she felt the same as you, and I just love Succession. I won't give any spoilers, no spoilers on this season, but it's just brilliant. It's absolutely amazing. So I do watch a lot of TV series, lots of films. Not so many at the moment because we have a small child who's taking up a lot of our time, bless him, as you can imagine. And we have to be fairly quiet at night just to make sure he sleeps. So we're not really firing up the 5.1 surround sound system much at the moment, but we will do that as soon. I can't wait for Harrison to be at the age where we can really start, we can sit down and start watching stuff together. I'm really looking forward to that. Introduce him to the entire Star Wars saga. Right. Yes, Alan says add a queue so everyone can help find the questions. I love that idea. Thank you, Alan. It's only me doing this. I haven't got anyone helping me, obviously. So it is just myself doing this. So yeah, put a queue before your question. Martin, are you planning interviews on Solo Club? I am. Yep. So at the moment I'm filming the first season. Talking of seasons, the first season of the podcast for this channel. So alongside these live streams and the regular videos, I will be interviewing fellow solopreneurs. I've I've shot 4 or 5 interviews. I think no, four interviews so far. They've been really good stuff. I'm going to Brussels next week to interview Patrick Rambles, who a lot of you guys might be aware of, fellow tech creator, a good friend of mine as well. That would be great because I'm doing that one in person. But yes, so that they'll start going live from next month onwards, which they're great. And the idea with these podcasts is to really dig into the solopreneur life, finding out what these people do from a business perspective, how it affects them, the mental health side of it, which is a huge part of this, which I don't talk about very often, but it's something we really dig into on these interviews, and just how they like I say, how they build businesses like this, because it fascinates. Even though I've done it myself, it absolutely fascinates me. So yeah, stay tuned on that one, Martin. Amir says, how long did it take you to get to 1,000 subs and 4,000 hours? I've not reached 4,000 hours yet on this channel. It's about 1,000 hours, I think. But I have reached 1,000 subscribers, which is crazy. I think we're about 1,050 now or something. And that took less than 30 days. It took about 20 days or something, 25 days. And a lot of this came from, well, the biggest part of that growth came from a mention of Solo Club at the very end of an iPad video on the Mark Ellis Reviews channel. So I bet it was obviously, I did it completely, it was all kind of planned, but right at the end of that video, I just mentioned the fact that I had this second channel. And as soon as I did that, within a day, I'd picked up 400 new subscribers. Because what happens at the very end of YouTube videos, you have the last remaining people. Most people, 50% of viewers, will drop off halfway through most YouTube videos. So you're left right at the end with the people who are very engaged. It's like, I don't like using the word, but it's your true fans, basically. And I know that if they're there right at the end, I've got a very good chance of convincing them or encouraging them to do something. And the whole point of putting that mention at the end of the iPad video was to get people to this channel and hopefully subscribe. And it worked big time. So yeah, so we're not at the 4,000 hours just yet, which means I can't monetize the channel for AdSense, but it's getting there. It's getting there pretty quickly. So it's great. Steve, what microphone is that? Cost. So this is you see these everywhere. If you watch any sort of podcast, any kind of live thing, people will be using this. It's a Shure SM7B. He says trying to reattach it to the stand. Shure SM7B. Shure brilliant, long-standing microphone manufacturer. This is just it's like I say, it's very dependable. Sounds great. You don't have to do much with it really. It's great, and cost-wise, 300 quid, I think, £300 in the UK, something like that. But money well spent. If you're going to be doing a lot of podcasting and this sort of stuff, I'd get the SM7B. There's a reason you see these everywhere. What else have we got here? John says, I'm a silver surfer. Can you recommend me a laptop? I do the usual email, Word, Excel, some Photoshop, etc., and a small amount of video. I have £900. Any help would be great. I would get yourself a M1 MacBook Air. You can still get them. You can buy them. You can get them refurbed, or you can get them secondhand. But they are still fantastic machines. And if you, based on what you're doing, that would serve you really well, John. So yeah, an M1 MacBook Air. Just get yourself 16 gig of unified memory, and you're away. What else have we got here? Yeah, Jakob is giving some advice there, as he always does. You can always rely on Jakob for this sort of stuff. When are you hiring for a channel manager? Good question. Funny enough, I've spoken to someone today actually about that, potentially about managing this channel. That's one thing, which is, again, fairly fascinating from my perspective, is that you very quickly run out of time. As soon as your creator business gets to a certain size, like mine has, it's amazing how quickly your time just evaporates, and also how many other things that you want to do. And you very quickly start to work out where your time is best spent. And quite often you're spending it on things on which you shouldn't be spending it, basically. And I've noticed that. I noticed that throughout last year, really, which is why this year has been the year of outsourcing things. And yeah, it's very likely that I'm going to be getting someone in to manage this channel. Not Mark Ellis reviews at the moment. That's not sure what to do about that at the moment. Things are okay in that realm. But with this is on. I'm onto something with this. It's growing, as I've mentioned a moment ago, very rapidly. But it needs a constant eye on it, really, and a bit more strategy throwing into it, which I just don't have the time for at the moment. So that is probably the plan. Right. Any other questions, guys? What have we got? Jakob says, are you planning live podcasts? I'd love to do that, actually. Yeah, at some stage. So the podcast interviews that I mentioned a moment ago are pre-recorded. They'll be edited. But I do have it in mind to do something like I'm doing now and bringing someone in. So yeah, I mean, these weekly live streams, there's no reason why it has to be just me each time. It would make sense, I think, to bring in a special guest occasionally. And thankfully, I've kind of built some really nice friendship groups in YouTube land. So yeah, hopefully we can do that, definitely. I'm jealous of Martin, because I know Martin is on holiday somewhere at the moment. I can't quite remember where it is, but he's somewhere nice and warm. Are you getting recognition from others on YouTube and being invited onto other shows? Am I being not so much on being not so much being invited onto other YouTube channels, but I am getting people mainly through Twitter. Actually, Twitter's as much as people don't seem to like it these days. For me, Twitter has been an amazing community building tool in this industry, and there's been 2 or 3 fairly big creators on there who I've been chatting to. Either I've reached out to them, or actually they've spotted a tweet that I've tweeted, and they've got in touch, and that's led to 2 or 3 quite interesting conversations. The biggest probably is Jason T. Lewis, Painfully Honest Tech. He's been in touch. He's been on the podcast, on the 8 or 16 podcast. But no, I mean, I've got some fairly lofty guest aspirations for the podcast interviews on this channel. I won't say who, but there are 2 or 3 people I've got on my list who, if I get them on, it would be amazing. But yeah, we'll see. Turkey, you're in Turkey, Martin. What's the temperature? It's 11 degrees in the UK at the minute, 11 degrees centigrade, which is just terrible. How many podcasts are you planning for season 1? I'm not sure at the moment. Not sure. It's a bit fluid. I've got a huge list of people that I want to get on, and production-wise, they do take a fair bit of making. You have to get the interview arranged. You have to conduct the interview. You have to edit it and publish it. And at the moment, it is just me doing that. So I'm not going to have too many in the first season. I want to get the kind of that process in place and get the editing for it down and all that sort of stuff. Although the editing for that will be outsourced at some stage. But yeah, I'm not sure how many. Enough, hopefully to get you guys interested. Out of interest, is there anyone that you'd like to see interviewed? You know, if you let me know in the comments if there's someone that you'd like me to see interviewing on this channel. 23 degrees in Turkey. God, it just summer hasn't started. I mean, it's not summer yet, but even spring that hasn't started yet in the UK. It's been terrible. Right. Any more questions? What else have we got on here? What sort of things would you like me to cover on these live streams? I've got. I'll never run out of ideas for this, obviously, but equally, I'd love to know from you. What would you want me to cover? Again, give me some examples of things that you'd like me to talk about. Bearing in mind, this isn't tech related. This is all about content creation and the behind the scenes stuff of YouTube. So let me know. John says, "How's your eye?" Okay, so people who aren't aware, I had an infection on the back of my eye, my left eye, back in September last year. It was a kind of what was it? I've forgotten what it was called. It was a horrible thing, a really horrible thing that happened to the back of my eye. Gave me a very kind of glassed over vision in this eye. That's all gone. The glassing over has. However, it has scarred the back of my eye, which again doesn't sound horrible, doesn't hurt at all. But what it's done, it's left this kind of strange. It's very hard to describe. It's a little bit like when you've got smudged glasses, or there's just not something quite right in my peripheral vision. My main vision's absolutely fine, but there's just something up here that isn't right. And I've been told that it's scarred, and that's how it is basically, which has been a bit of a tough thing to deal with. I've talked about this on my newsletter. And this has nothing to do with content creation at all, but you've asked the question, so I'm answering it. But yeah, I've talked about this on my newsletter, and it has. It's not easy to come to terms with. I'm not blinded. I'm not registered blind or partially sighted or anything like that at all. So I'm incredibly lucky with that. I have an auntie who is completely blind, so I know what it's. Well, I understand what it's like to be in that position. So it could have been a lot worse. I had very high pressure in this eye. Basically, it went off the charts. So thankfully I went to the hospital at the right time. But so I should count myself lucky. But it is quite tricky to deal with because I spot it. It's there all the time, and it's that thing of being a relatively healthy person your entire life, and then suddenly having something happen to you, which happens to all of us, unfortunately, at some stage, and you have to deal with it. And yeah, so I've struggled with it a little bit, to be completely honest with you. And I think because everything I do is visual, so all this is visual, editing is visual. I love photography. My worry with it has always been that I've been told it won't get worse, but my worry with it is that it will affect what I'm doing. It hasn't at all. It's not stopped me working. It's not stopped me enjoying my work. It's more of a mental thing, really. And like the optician said to me recently, she said, bear in mind that you can see your nose. Everyone can see their nose. And now I've said that, you won't be able to not see your nose. But our brain is so clever that it's worked out how to avoid seeing it. It basically fills in the blanks because you've got two eyes, if you've got two working eyes. And that's a similar thing with this. So there are days when I don't notice it because my brain is filling in the gap. And it's just that thing of thinking about it too much. And the more you think about it, the more you spot it. I'll get over it. It's not a big deal at all. There's people out there with much worse things. I'm not making light of other things that people have to deal with, but everything's relative, isn't it? And yeah, it's probably been the health-wise, it's been the scariest thing that I've had to deal with in my life, which again, I should take as a positive because touch wood, if that's the worst thing that's happened to me at the age of, what am I, 42, then I've got a lot to be grateful for. So, but thank you for asking. I'm absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. I'm not in ill health. Rob, podcast Rob says, give Ali Abdaal a tickle. I don't know if you mean that figuratively or literally give him a tickle, but yeah, I'd love to get him on the podcast. He is on my list, as you can guess, as you can imagine. Got some examples here of stuff that people want me to cover. So content creation workflow. Yeah, lots of things. I can help you manage this channel. I'm getting lots of people offer me that help. At the moment, guys, I'm not taking any kind of what's the word? Submissions or applications for the channel manager at the moment because I am speaking to someone at the moment. So But yeah, we'll see. Right. Have we got any more questions? It's always a fun one. It's always a funny one with these live streams. You never really know when to wrap it up. And what's amazed me with the first one that I did, the 100,000, the 100K celebration thing, was that hundreds of people have watched it afterwards, and the retention's quite good. So when you do these live streams on YouTube, you get whoever turns up gets the live feed, and then it gets saved and turned into a normal video automatically. So it just appears, the recording of this will appear in my feed of videos. And I've always thought with that most people won't watch the recording. Most people will, they'll tune into the live version. And if people spot there's this kind of hour-long rambling live thing that you missed out on, why would you bother watching it? But actually, it seems that people do, which is great. It's fantastic for the channel. It's brought in some more subs. But like I say, I never really know when to stop it. I've just noticed that Martin's question has just popped up on this. Is that me? That is me. Didn't know you could do that. That's amazing. So I can put your I'm using StreamYard for this, by the way, but I've noticed I can put your questions on the screen. So I can do that with Amir. There we go. That's clever, isn't it? I like that. I keep spotting new things that you can do with StreamYard. So do these live streams count towards your watch hours? I genuinely don't know, Amir. Probably not the live stream, but I think that the views that it gets afterwards, I think so. Jan, here we go. I'm enjoying this. You say your eye doesn't affect you, but it must have some issue with editing, but your brain will sort it out for you. My floaters are like that. Does it get worse when you're tired? No, it doesn't get any worse or better, really. It's just there. It might get better. There's a chance it could get better with certain, not medication, but certain things you can do. I've had some suggestions that certain types of acupuncture can help with this sort of stuff, with scar tissue and things like that, which I'm going through at the moment, actually. I'm having some acupuncture done. It doesn't affect me with my editing at all, Jan. Like I say, my central vision, which is what is you're using to do this kind of work, no problems whatsoever. So it's not affecting it. It's literally just me thinking about it and knowing that it's there. That's all it is. I really like this question feature. It's looking great. Martin's going to the bar. Can we have a beer, please, Martin? That'd be great. Okay. I think we've had most of the questions, haven't we? Let me see if I've missed any questions. Don't think we have. Guys, you've all hung around for 42 minutes, which has been is amazing. Thank you so much for joining me for this. Just a quick reminder that this will happen every week, so I'll be doing this weekly now from now on. The next one I think is on the 5th, but if you go onto the channel, onto the live section, you can see the upcoming lives. And yeah, remember to sign up to my solo club Substack, which is in the description just below. And yeah, I'll hopefully see you again next week if you fancy it. And take care. Let me know if you've got any other questions. As always, I'm always available on email or on Twitter, etc. And yeah, have a great day, guys. I'm padding a little bit because I'm trying to remember how to end this live stream. I've just worked it out. Fantastic. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you next week. Cheers.